Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the breaking news that the BBC have, of course, backed down, thinking they have a face-saving way out, and Gary Lineker will be returning to work, not, of course, having to change what he's doing. Indeed, his tweet welcoming the move from the BBC, he reiterated his support for refugees after thanking the public and colleagues for their support. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there may be some further ramifications here. The news broke it was just about in time for me to do the video. It wasn't, had it been a bit later, it'd been like, oh, there's not enough time now. I have to do it for the second video for today. So it was just about enough time. But in theory, over the next few hours, there could be more things of interest. But I think, it's largely done now. I want to focus on where we go from here. But, the way this seems to have developed this morning, there are three main things to note very quickly, first of all. First, Gary Lineker is returning to work without having to accept that anything at all he did or say was wrong. Second, Tim Davie, the Director General, the moron who seems to have caused the problem, made a statement in which he didn't acknowledge that he got anything wrong, but nor did he say Lineker got anything wrong either. Third, nobody seems to be resigning. The half-wits who created this chaos are trying to make out that the guidance isn't clear and they will be having an independent review. That's what they think is their face-saving way out. In reality, it is a nonsense because the guidance was perfectly clear to anyone who read both their impartiality and social media guidelines. It was really clear. You read the social media guidelines, it says don't discuss party political things. If this applies to you, basically we're saying only some people who work for the BBC it applies to. So they go, okay, so who does it apply to then? You go to the impartiality guidelines, turns out it's people who work on news and current affairs. But for all the baying mob who were cheering the fact that the presenterless match of the day got 500,000 views more than the previous week, oblivious to the fact that it was just people tuning in to see just how do the BBC present a sports programme without any presenters or even commentary. How do you do that? So they tuned in to find out. I want to see what they have to say when next week sees record numbers tuning in, because it will. I've got a feeling a lot of people will watch who don't even like football. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Tories absolutely have a great track record on using culture wars to their advantage. But fight a culture war with football and you are playing with fire. So after Tim Davie, Director General, made his non-statements, having backed down completely, Lineker said he was pleased a way forward was found. Yes, that way forward was for the BBC bosses to turn their brains back on, look at the carnage they'd wrought on the corporation and their own reputations and stand down. But Lineker also tweeted as well. So he thanked his colleagues and the public for their support, of course. He then reiterated his support for refugees. What that was showing that he hadn't been cowed at all, that his bosses hadn't said, tone it down, Gary, tone it down. His bosses obviously either hadn't even tried to tell him to tone it down because he said to them, you show me where I've broken a rule, and they were not able to. Or maybe they have tried to tell him to tone it down and he's gone, no, mate, piss off. But I'll tell you what I mostly want to talk about here. And it's not Lineker or even the BBC chair, Richard Sharp. It is Tim Davie, the Director General. He joined the corporation saying impartiality was going to be his big thing. It has been a big thing. George Osborne, former Tory Chancellor, said that he agreed that some of the language being used by some Conservatives on immigration at times is not acceptable. He said there's absolutely a point to be made there. But he also said he had sympathy with Davie for his efforts on maintaining impartiality. Now, I'm going to present two positions, both of which I disagree with. I'm going to present two positions. And I'm going to say that would exist. Let's say would exist because only one of these positions is true. So let's imagine this position, first of all, the one that Osborne is trying to paint. That Tim Davie joined the BBC, made it his mission to maintain impartiality for the BBC. He believes that part of this is that people who are prominent in public life and work for the BBC should not air their political views in public on any other platform. I don't agree with this position because it is tantamount to saying that if you appear on the BBC, you forfeit your right to freedom of speech. I do agree that they should not air their views on the BBC platform. I do agree that freedom of speech does not mean the freedom to say exactly what you like. You must not incite hatred or violence against a person or a group of people. But otherwise airing political views on another platform totally dissociated from the BBC, I think should be fine. I even think it should be fine for certain people who work in the news. But someone airing their views on their personal Twitter account who has nothing to do with the BBC's news or current affairs or political content, and has no links to the BBC on their bio on that platform, should absolutely be free to use it in the same way I would. When I was a teacher, I aired political views on my own platforms, including this one, and in the staff room. Never in front of students or parents, though. There's no reason why anyone working for the BBC should be any different. The other problem with this position, if you believe it, that it's Tim Davies' genuine belief, let's split up the politics of people who work for the BBC into BBC platforms and their own platforms. So if you've come in and you're going to make impartiality your big thing, you want to enforce impartiality, where is it best to start? The BBC platforms, where people are abusing it, or the other platforms? Surely the BBC platforms. Shouldn't you tackle those first? Shouldn't you tackle those who present biased or misleading politics on the BBC before having a pop at their public musings on other platforms? So until people are prevented from airing political views on BBC programmes, as numerous presenters have done, not Gary Lineker, they really should worry about unrelated social media later. Actually, I am going to correct myself. Gary Lineker did air political views on Qatar's human rights records when he was presenting there. But then so did everyone else. So I don't think this first position holds up. It doesn't ring true. The second position is that Tim Davie wants to tackle people working for the BBC airing views which might embarrass the government. Now, he might not have a specific issue with those attacking the Tories. He might, in theory, take the same view about someone attacking Labour if they were in government. I suspect not, however, because he's been a member of the Conservative Party for some years. I don't know if he still is. Maybe he cancelled it when he joined the corporation. I don't know. But he has been. In fact, he's even stood for election with the party. Now, that in itself doesn't mean his work can't be impartial. You can still be impartial and party political. It's his actions at the BBC which have demonstrated that he's not impartial. In the past week alone, there have been lots of Conservatives who work as presenters for the BBC weighing in on the asylum row, making political statements. Nobody's had a pop at them. They've only had a pop at Lineker. Why is that? Why did Tim Davie not tell Michael Portillo to shut his cake hole? Or any of the number of other presenters who've been free to say what they like, even on other broadcast media? So although I can back Osborne's general thrust, I do not go along with the notion that Davie got into a mess with fine intentions. During his time at the BBC, he has taken absolutely no action against anyone airing biased views in support of the Tories, even on BBC platforms, never mind their own. But he has then, several years later, tried to dismiss someone for making a comment which challenges the Tories on their own private platform, with no links to the BBC on it at all. That is as blatant a lack of impartiality as you can find. Tim Davie cannot bring impartiality to the BBC because he is incapable of practicing it himself. He can order this independent review. That's the upshot of it. There's going to be an independent review to make sure that the rules are clear. I mean, they're clear now, but they could do with further clarity. Fine, no problem. But if the result is that the Director General gets to apply the new rules inconsistently, if it's down to them to apply them inconsistently, it's not going to solve anything. What's needed are executives who may well be political. They may even be party political. Doesn't matter. But they must be able to be impartial in their own work. Tim Davie has shown he is not such an executive. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.